Zhang Jiuling, Afterthoughts number 4. In the south, a tangerine tree grows. Its leaves stay green all winter long. Is this because the weather there is mild? Or does it have a heart familiar with the touch of cold? It would make a fine gift for an honored guest. Why then do you leave it there, so far away? To each of us, a destiny that holds us firm. The circle's closed, there's no way to break free. Peaches and plums are the popular choice, but doesn't this tree also make fine shade? So this is the last one. This is the fourth of Zhang Jiuling's Afterthoughts, and I think there's only one more poem by Zhang Jiuling in this anthology, but further ahead, so we will be done with him for some time. Like its brothers in the Afterthoughts series, especially the first two of the poems, this is if we take it at face value, a nature poem. It's describing a tree, the tangerine tree, and how beautiful it is and how valuable. We may very easily surmise that it has another second layer of interpretation in which the tangerine tree is a stand-in, a symbol for the scholar official, for Zhang Jiuling. The tangerine tree is like the orchids and the laurel that appeared in the second of the Afterthoughts, a southern plant. Tangerine trees notoriously don't grow well above the line of the Huai River Valley. So they are, a typical fruit from the south, aromatic, beautiful. So it's only proper that a southern poet like Zhang Jiuling should use it as a symbol for himself. So the poem is a praise of this beautiful tangerine tree, which grows in the south and is an evergreen tree, like the pine in the north, which is also an evergreen tree. And being evergreen is symbolic in traditional Chinese poetry and philosophy, meaning you are stable, unchangeable, whatever the circumstances, favorable or unfavorable, that accompany you. And the poem, in the second couplet, asks a rhetorical question. Is it evergreen, that is it always stable because the weather in the south is milder, or because its heart is familiar with cold, that is, it has a strong heart steeled against adversity? Probably both. And it says, it's a nice gift, but it's here, far, far away from everywhere, in the south, in exile, away from the court, away from people who might appreciate it. Why is this so? Well, there's the fourth couplet, or the fifth couplet, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth couplet waxes philosophically. So it tells us that to each of us a destiny that holds us firm. The circle's closed, there's no way to break free. So even if you're virtuous, even if you're good, destiny might be adverse, you might be unlucky, and that will mean that you won't be where you should be based on your merits. You might suffer from disgrace and exile, an early death. So this was a topic that was long discussed in all religious traditions, really. Why do bad things happen to good people? And in the Chinese tradition, it's also present, for example, in the Analects and in other religious texts. The example there given is generally Jian Hui's fate. He was a disciple of Confucius, the most virtuous disciple, and yet he died young. And this connects with what I mentioned of the evergreens previously in the video. When explaining or when trying to justify how could it be that the most virtuous disciple was the one that died first, in the Analects, I think Confucius says something like, it's only in winter when we really appreciate the greenness of the pine, which means only in adversity does a virtuous person show how virtuous he is. Only when Yang Hui, for example, had to experience a life of poverty, only then could his enormous virtue, in spite of his poverty, shine forth. And this is presumably the same case here. So destiny locks us up. Destiny, I imagine the original Chinese word here would be Ming, which is used for a lot of things, but It's like the mandate of heaven, but it's also the things that are out of an individual's control, like the length of life or health, or misfortunes associated with, not with you behaving properly, but with others being like they are. In the concluding couplet, peaches and plums are the popular choice, but doesn't this tree also make fine shade? Is an apology, again, of the tangerine tree. Why are peaches and plums contrasted with it? Again, in Chinese traditional poetry and Chinese traditional texts, peaches and plums work as the epitome of beautiful trees. They flourish at the end of winter in the case of the plum, if this is the winter plum, which I imagine it is, and or at the beginning of spring, early spring in the case of the peaches. And they also have a symbolic meaning. I think there is an idiom. I'm not sure if it was created from a quote in the Book of Odes or somewhere else, but there is an expression in Chinese which says, under peaches and plums, a path forms by itself, which means peaches and plums are so beautiful that they attract people. There's no need to build a path under them because people will come on their own, even if there is no path, to appreciate the beauty of the flowers and their scent. And peaches and plums jump from being real peaches and plums to being virtuous people. They're taken as a symbol of the virtues. Those people who are good, who are virtuous, who are noble, who are generous, they will attract people. They will gather friends around themselves, even if they don't strive to do it, or even if it's difficult to reach them. And Zhang Jiuling says, I, the tangerine tree, also make a fine shade. I, the southerner, I'm also worthy of respect and of love and of appreciation. Like in Afterthoughts 3, we see here an obsession for recognition. The poet, the scholar official in exile, away from the court, away from the intellectual life of his peers, of the other scholar officials, yearns for recognition. He wants to be valued in his own terms. He wants to be appreciated, and of course he wants to be employed. So in all of these poems, we have seen that tension between Taoistically inclined and conventional praise of the retired life, but for the most part, I have felt that it's just an appropriate mask, and a persona to adopt for a Confucian scholar official who is out of office and who has to search for some sort of consolation. So to conclude, quite a nice poem. I liked the imagery. I like the tangerine tree as the alter ego of the poem, and a very appropriate one because it's a southern tree, and it's quite effective. I think we finished the Afterthoughts on quite a nice note. Next video, we will be moving on to another poet, and what a poet he is. It's Li Bai. So see you tomorrow.